Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you this evening. We have been working on this Bally Safari pinball machine designed by the great Ted Zell, and there was something I noticed in the previous video that I wanted to look into in this video. Apparently, supposedly, this thing is a 7-ball game, or there's a setting to play 7 balls on it, so we're going to look into that and see if that's true, or if that's just something that has to do with the add a ball feature or something like that. If you don't know, there were certain states where in the United States where it was illegal to win a free game because it's kind of a technicality, but they were using flipperless pinball machines as gambling devices. So they needed to differentiate between a gambling game and a entertainment game, an amusement game, right? So because of that, in certain states, they had to create what was called an add-a-ball game, Addaball. I know my drawl is heavy. An add-a-ball game, which instead of winning free games, you could win several free balls. So the thing in the schematics that says that this can be a 7-ball game, it could just be that has something to do with the add-a-ball setup. So we'll check that out. But I wanted to show you something interesting here. So this is a Bally from 1968, I believe. And this is a Bally bingo machine from the 70s. So this one's called Miss Universe. It's got some kind of risque artwork on it. But basically, this was a straight-up gambling device. So the balls would come out and you shoot them into the playfield. They land on certain numbers. It lights up numbers here in the back glass. If you get them in a line or you get them in corners or whatever, several different ways, you win credits. This is the credit wheel, right? So that's how many credits are on the game. Right now there's 0. You could increase that up to, you might have 4,000 credits on it or whatever, and they're a nickel a piece or whatever. I think usually they were a nickel. This one took a quarter, but I think you got 5 credits with it. I might be wrong about that. So anyway, this is a straight up gambling device. The whole goal was to win free credits and then cash the credits out. So you would go over to the operator of the place and say, hey, I've got 1,000 credits. They're a nickel a piece. That would be, what, $50? No. What's 1,000 divided by 20, Joe? Joe, figure it out. $5. It's 20. 20 and $1. So if there was 200, that'd be $10. If there was 2,000, that'd be $100. So it's $50. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Give me my money. I won.
I won't do that math again real quick. I think I'm right. But anyway, you make a bunch of money, because you won a bunch of credits. Illegal as hell in some cities, in some states, right? So Bally's saying, what? It's a pinball machine. What are you talking about? The pinball games are everywhere. What are you talking about? And the governments are saying, oh, hell no. That's a gambling device. That's not a pinball machine, right? So they had to differentiate which ones were gambling devices and which ones weren't. So this one says, play skill games for fun and recreation. They're trying to show you that it's not a gambling game. So, they would tell the people in charge of the government, oh, no, this is different. And they would say, oh, no, we see it. We say, look, you can win free credits. And so in some states, to get around that, they had to make a special back glass or a sticker that covered that up, and they had to set it up so that you couldn't win a free game. But you could win free balls because technically or legally, they don't really have a value. But if, let's say you won 10 games, you could sell it to the guy in line behind you instead of him having to put his dime in. Okay, so it may be something to do with that, but we'll check. Let's get the schematics, and let's see if we can just find if we can find the adjustment. We'll just set it on 7-ball and then just play it and see if it lets you play a 7-ball game. All right, we're down here in the playfield, underneath the playfield, in the coffin, in the cabinet. And there are some little Jones plugs here that you can move around. And it tells you here on the side what they do. This thing's actually in pretty original shape. Not much has been done to it. And it says scoring feature. Replays add-a-balls or points. It says, so let's see. Replays add-a-balls or points. They've got it down on points. To put the add-a-ball, to put it on add-a-ball, there's an extra unit that has to be in the game, and I don't know that that's in the game. I've never modified one to do that. So I've had some that just are add-a-ball machines though. And then over here, the second and third coin shoot setting. And then here is the match feature, which is on. And then here, balls per game, 3, 5, and 7 balls per game, which is this jumper. And it's set on 5, which corresponds with how it was when we played it at the end of the last video. Now this thing, I have not serviced it or anything. I just got it limping along by messing with the hold coil that had some problems. So if you didn't see that video, check it out. So I'm going to turn the game off and I'm going to move that jumper up to 7 balls. What it says is the 7 ball setting, and then we'll play it and see if the thing actually does advance past the 5th ball. All right, so we have changed it. Let's see if the game will start. So you see it says ball in play 1. Again, I haven't serviced it, so I'm not going to play it much. I just want to see what happens. Ball in play 2. Now you hear it click twice. Tuk tuk. That's because we're playing a 1-player game, so it's moving up to second player ball 1 and then moving past that. So we're on first player ball 1. It goes tuk. And it moves up to second player ball 1, and then it goes tuk and skips the second player and moves up to first player ball 2. You follow that? First player ball 3. It's Christining itself. The bell started working again a little bit. Not completely. So that is not a pop bumper here on the playfield. You can't see it right now, but it's not a pop bumper. It's a dead bumper, and the rubber ring on it is all dried up. If I put a fresh rubber ring on it, I think it'll give it a little bit of a bounce and play a little better. Ball 4. All right, so she's working, but she's rough. All right, ball 5. And ball 6, but we don't see it. It could just be the bulbs burn out or something. Ball 7, but I don't see it. I wonder if they're not mounted in the cabinet. Game over. Huh. Crazy. Okay, let's see about why ball 6 and ball 7 didn't light up. So if you look in the back of the back box, there's clearly room for 7 bulbs there. Interesting. All right, so the smart thing, the most obvious thing to do would be to check the light bulbs. This is the easiest thing to do. Are the light bulbs in there, and do they work? But we're not going to do that. That wouldn't make a good video. Come on, why would we do that? the way I'm thinking about it, so I'm going to go ahead and complicate it in my mind. Light number 6 and number 7 never get used because the thing was set on 5 ball. So the chances that both of those lights and only those 2 lights burn out is like almost non-existent. You'd think that, ball number 1, that light would burn out first because it's on more. So it could be a thing where light number 6 and 7, that they've gotten oxidized in the socket because they never work, or they've never been used. But it's probably there's an extra switch or something whenever 6 and 7's on, or the ball count unit, when it gets up to there, that part of the track's dirty because it never gets up that high or something like that. So anyway, let's look at the schematics and complicate it and see what makes light number 6 and light number 7, which is uncharted territory. I have never seen an EM pinball machine with a light number 6 and a light number 7, folks, unless it's an Adaball. So let's look at the schematics and just see what the difference is between those two. Spoiler alert, we looked at the schematics in the last video, and I remember seeing something there where those 2 lights are separate for some reason. So here are the schematics. They're huge, and they're about 7 feet long. And these came with the game. These are the original ones. Now, if you need a copy of schematics like this, a big old cool copy for your game, a good place to get them is the Pinball Resource, pbresource.com. They make copies of these, and they make them big like this so that you've got a nice copy. I don't know if they make them this exact size for these Ballys or not, but so excuse me. So everything seems to be working fine on the multi-ball setup, but it let us play 7 balls and it was scoring right and all that, but the light just wasn't on. So all we really are concerned about is what makes the light come on. Well, it looks like the player up unit disc, if you can see it, gets power here. This would be a moving finger on the disc as it spins around, right? And depending on which of these little rivets it's on, that will light up a different ball. And so you can see here that if the game over relay is not this way, if the game over relay is this way, it turns on the game over light. Now that's working. And when the game over relay is this way, because you're in the game is not over, the first ball light turns on, the second ball light turns on, the third ball light turns on, the fourth ball light turns on, the fifth ball light turns on, and then here is the 6th and the 7th, which work exactly like the 5th, like it connects to the same exact spot. So the only difference between them is it's a different spot on the player up unit disc. So I would guess that, like I was saying, it's probably because of the way it's been set, it only advances up to the 10th position, which is player 1 and then player 2, player 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, back and forth. And when it gets to the 10th position, the next time it steps up, it sends it into game over. So the little track has never been up to these rivets, probably since the thing left the factory. So it very well could just be that track's dirty, and that's the reason that they won't work. The only other real explanation is it actually is that the light bulbs are burnt out. So if you watched the previous video, I showed a little bit about how the hold relay works, and it's just a little unique, a little different than how they do it on other machines. This one, I'm checking out how the game over relay works. So this is when the game is over, this trips. And what they use to trip it is the match relay. So when the match relay comes on, that trips the game. Strange. Now how does the match relay come on? It's over here. So when you get to a certain point on the player up unit disc, where it's ball 5, ball 6, ball 7, depending on how it's set, it trips this match relay instead of the ball return kicker solenoid. So when the ball return relay comes in, it's just so weird the way they do it. It's all kind of backwards. It's brilliant, but when the ball return relay comes in, if the match relay has not pulled in, it kicks the ball out. But if the match relay is pulled in, that will be open. All right, I had a customer come in. I'm trying to figure these out for you people that are like being deep in the schematics. So one of the things you have to figure out is how is the thing drawn? Well, it very clearly shows you that it's drawn with the player up unit disc on ball 1 and player 1. Okay? And also the game is not over because the game over light is not on. So it's in gameplay, ball 1, player 1. That's how it's all drawn. So this disc does actually look like it's drawn in the correct order. I'm wondering if these are a typo, though. I would assume not, and I just don't understand how it works yet. But we can figure it out. So we're at this position on the player up unit disc, which is where ball 1, player 1, the light is on. It looks to me like, since that's connected, as soon as you score 10 points or 100 points, it's going to make the player up unit step up solenoid pull in and advance it to the second position. Now, why would they make it like that? It could have to do with so you can start a 2-player game. As long as you haven't scored any points and you hit the start button again, it won't reset all of this because it's on that first position. That would be my guess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start a game, and then we're going to look at this player up unit disc, because this is going to be where our problem with the light bulbs is anyways. And by the way, you don't have to do all of this. I'm just doing it because I'm trying to make an interesting video. I'm going to start a 1-player game and see if we stay on this position at the beginning of the game on the player up unit disc, and maybe we can figure out how it works to make a 7-ball game happen. Okay, so I started a game and it reset back to this position. So it seems like this is doing the ball and play light. And again, it's all dirty. I'm thinking that it's probably just going to be that all of that needs cleaned. Now, looking at the schematics, it looks like as soon as I score a point, it's kicked the ball out. As soon as I score a point, it's going to make that thing step up 1 position. So I'll try to reach around, score something, and we'll see if this moves up. Well, I just looked at it, and at the beginning of the game, it resets back to there. And then it immediately steps up 1 position because this player up relay pulls in. The player up relay pulls in. If I can find it here. Because the ball goes through the runway shooting out to the out lane. So I don't know why when it resets back to the original position that it's only at for a minute, that these relays being closed would cause it to jump up again. All right, so I've tilted it. There's no tilt light on, but it's killed the hold relay like it did the other day when it tilted, right? And I've got the ball just stuck here. Okay, so let's say that you walked up and you started the game at that point. Okay, it should have reset this back to like a 0 position, and I think it has. And by the way, it moves that way. I thought it moved this way. It moves that way. So we're at a 0 position. Now, as soon as I knock this ball loose, it should score something. And then it should step it up to ball and play 1, which it does not say right now. Because it's at that 1 position. I've got it just balanced there. I don't know if any of this is interesting. Anybody else? I'm just trying to figure out how they work. Okay, so I'm going to knock the ball loose. Yep. So they did it in case you had the ball on the play field and we're trying to do some tricky stuff. As soon as you start the game and you wiggle the ball loose, it's going to count as your first ball, buddy. You thought you had it, but you didn't have nothing. You know, another way that could happen is if the ball was already in the shooter lane. So then the player up relay wouldn't reset to there because it didn't go through that the trough. It would just be sitting there the whole time. But as soon as you scored a point, it would put it up to the position it needs to be at. Okay, so obviously that's position 1. If you haven't scored anything, that's player 1, ball 1 once you've scored. This is player 2, ball 2. Okay. Now what in the world advances it from here? What makes the player up unit step up solenoid go from there to there? I guess when the score motor starts turning, the player up relay will pull in. Yeah, it has nothing to do with these lines. It's all going to work through here. So as soon as the score motor starts turning, if the player up relay is in, which will happen when it shoots the ball through the trough, it will make it step up. So that's going to happen every time you go through. So what we're concerned is, how does the game end? So how does this match relay pull in, which we've already determined is what causes the game over relay to pull in. Okay, so it's at position 1 until you score something, or the ball goes through the lane, and then it ends up here. So that's ball 1, player 1. This is just drawn a little weird, but it makes sense once you look at it. This is ball 1, player 2. When it gets to that point, there's this extra wire that connects through here if you're not on a 2-player game as the score motor turns, and the player up relay is still in. It will kick it again. So that's how they go from, that's how they're skipping the second player. It's because that relay is not pulled in. Okay, so it's ball 1, player 1, ball 1, player 2, ball 2, player 1, ball 2, player 2. If that's not in, it will immediately skip this again. Then it gets to ball 3, player 1. So this looks like it plugs in here. That's not what's going on. If it's on 3-ball, this plug of 4 wires is plugged in down here. So those 2 wires would plug in here. And when you get to ball 3, player 1, when the number 2 can play relay isn't pulled in because it's a 1-player game, and the player up relay hasn't pulled in, as soon as the ball return relay pulls in, it will pull in the match relay. So it's just drawn kind of weird. So these would be plugged in down here on 3-ball, so that's correct. If it was 5-ball, these would be plugged in here. So when it got to ball 3, player 1, nothing would happen because it's not connected. And when it got to ball 3, player 2, it would connect through there and still step it up to skip it. Now you're on ball 4, player 1. When you get to ball 4, player 2, it would connect through here, blah, 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 step it up again. Now you're on ball 5, player 1, but this is plugged in here. So at the end of that ball, blah, 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 make the match relay work because it's a 5-player game. If it was a 7-player game, these would be connected. I mean, a 7-ball game, these would be connected just as they're drawn. Okay, so it would do the same thing all the way through, and you would have to get all the way down here physically to make that match relay pull in. So it makes sense. All right, so yeah, it seems that they have went all the way through, made the whole thing work. So we still have the problem, though, why aren't our lights on? Just looking at everything, it looks to me like the only thing it can be is that wiper blade that moves, since it's never been up to that area of it before. Every time it gets to ball 5, it stops and trips the game over because it pulls in the match relay. It's just literally never wiped across the 6th and 7th ball rivet, and so the whole thing just needs cleaned up. So what are we going to do about it? Well, I'm going to turn the machine off, and I'm going to remove this screw and pop this whole thing off. And then I'm going to clean all these rivets so that's making good contact with all of the fingers. And that should get our light bulbs working right. So let me take that screw off first. All right, so I've taken it loose. And there's a bunch of, like, I think somebody sprayed WD-40 on it. Now, I know I'm super sensitive to the spraying of the WD-40, but I'm telling you, that's what it looks like to me. I think there's WD-40 on it. Like, look at this gear here. Look at. Look at that. WD-40 like hell. And so whenever you clean it, you got the, we might even have to take the, like that out to man, I'm going to get my watch dirty. I better take my watch off. Wait till I get my watch off. These leather ones are a little harder to do. Okay, so there's a switch here that it looks like when this steps up, you know, stepping up through the balls, this switch is open and this switch is closed. But the strange thing is when it resets, it opens this switch and it closes that switch. There's a little piece of plastic here that spun around as the wheel turned and did that. But here's the kicker. That's position 0, we'll call it. When it steps back up, it looks like it closed that switch again, but it's left this switch closed. So I don't know if that's misadjusted. Why would it have to open at the second position? That's kind of weird. So we're going to have to look at that on the schematics too and see if that needs adjusted or not. All right, so I found both of them. One of them says player up unit 0. So they mean the 0 position switch. So this is closed at the 0 position. The reason we know that is because, again, this thing's drawn at the 0 position. They're showing you, they're literally showing you, hey, it's pointing at 0, right? So this schematic is drawn at the 0 position. So at the 0 position, this switch closes. So what it appears is going on, that's on the game over relay trip, which is how they reset it out of game over, right? So the game over relay has pulled in, latched, because the game's over, and the start relay has pulled in. The start relay is going to keep the score motor turning until things happen to make the start relay fall out, right? And as the score motor turns, one of the things that it does is it resets the player up unit. And when that player up unit gets back to the position of 0, that switch will connect and take it out of game over. So it's just a safety thing to make sure that it gets back to position 0. It can't come out of game over unless that's back to 0. So that's one. And then the other one is right here, and it says player 0. So they're talking about it's a player. They just didn't write everything here, but it's the same thing as that one. The player up unit 0 position switch operates on the second step. So I actually caught that, right? So what would be the purpose of that? Well, if you look, it's on the start relay. So the start relay cannot pull in unless that switch is closed. And at the 0 position, it's open. And it's telling you that it operates on the second step. So at the 0 position, that switch is open. And at the 1 position, that switch is open. At position 2, it closes and blah, 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 blah. And I know it all sounds confusing, but you can tell that because, again, it's drawn at position 0. And it's open at position 0. It's telling you it operates on the second step. Okay. So why would they do that? It's because they don't want you to be able to pull the start relay in, which is the reset relay. It makes everything, the game restart, right? They don't want you to always be able to do that. So what is the situation that they don't want you to be able to start a new game? They don't want you to be able to start a new game if you haven't scored any points yet and it's still at position 0. So if you're down here, you haven't even scored any points yet, because if you had, it would have stepped up to there. You'd be at position 1. So they don't want, when you press the start button, that it's going to go ahead and start another game. And you can see here the start relay, the way it's pulled in is with the replay button. As long as the replay unit is not open, as long as there's a replay on it, the first coin chute, the second coin chute, or the third coin chute, any of those would send power to the start relay, but it won't do it because of this switch if you're at position 0. You haven't scored any points. But let's say you have scored points. Well, now you're at position 1. They don't want you to be able to start a game at position 1 either, because you're on your first ball. That would suck. So you're in the middle of the first ball of the first player, and you accidentally hit the start button, or maybe you press it not even thinking about it. They don't want you to be able to start a game, so they've put a switch there that doesn't open until after that. So what is the second step? Well, that's player 2 ball 1. So as soon as you've moved to player 2 ball 1, if you hit start, it'll start a new game. It'll reset everything back and blah blah blah. Or if you have moved up to, like, for instance, step 3 because you're at ball 2 of the 1-player game, this switch will be closed at that point. So all that to say, if you look at the schematics, they're extremely helpful. It'll help you figure out any little thing that you run into in the machine, and this proves to us that that switch is actually properly adjusted and it shouldn't close until the second step. Okay, folks, so I've cleaned these rivets off. I just used sandpaper, really light sandpaper. Cleaned them off, got them nice, and I've put a little bit of synthetic grease on it. You got to have some of this. You can get it at the hardware store. You want dielectric. That's the secret to it. We also have it, so if you want to order some because you just don't want to go to the hardware store, I understand how you feel. So there's a way around that. If you go to our website, lionsarcade.com, look how it uses a little, it's got a little hookable top there. Genius design. lionsarcade.com, the link is down below. We have a parts page on there, and on our parts page, we have links to a bunch of stuff on Amazon that we use in our games. So we have a link on there for this. If you follow the link, you can order your own. Now, if you buy anything after you click that link, we get a tip. So that's why we tell people to go do it. And this product is made in the USA. Isn't that wonderful? It's good stuff. Okay, so I just put a little bit of that on there so that you make sure that that thing can move well across those rivets. You've got metal contacting metal, so it needs a little bit of lubrication. So I'm going to put it back on there, and I believe that that will fix our light bulb problem. But we'll see. Okay, folks, so I reset it, and it is at the 0 position because I left the ball in the out lane, and it lights up player ball 1 even in the 0 position. So they must have that player unit with a couple more little jumpers on it so that if it's in position 0, 1, or 2, the ball in play 1 is on. Because position 2 would be player 2, ball 1. Alright. So you heard the click, click. That's it moving up 2 positions. Now we're at ball 2. This is going to be a freaking awesome game once we get it all cleaned up and working right. So you see when the ball shoots through, after that, it's turning on that player relay, and then it's going click, click. It's stepping up 1 position, and when it gets to that next position, since we don't have a 2-player game started, it's shorting it and pulling it in again. Ball 3. It all makes sense. You know, it's kind of hard to understand, but once you start looking through it, it's all switches on and off, or little stepper units that move around. All right, ball 5. Our lamps are working a lot better on the ball and play. But let's see if we can get the elusive ball 6 that's never been seen before in most games. You know, in some of the newer games, you can have more than 5 balls as well. Here we go. There it is, ball 6. Can you see it? I can't tell on the camera if you can see it. There it is. What do you think about that? Ball 6. You watched this whole video, hopefully, to find that. This game's going to be so fun. We might just have to keep this one. And ball 7. Wow. So basically, this whole video was about showing you 2 extra light bulbs. Look, folks, that's what YouTube's for. See how it's starting to Christine itself? It's starting to come back, folks. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed it. Join us next time. There is our game over light. Join us next time when maybe we'll look at one other thing in super detail like that. So we've been doing a lot of these videos where we just work through it and say, okay, I'm going to clean all this. This is what we do, blah, blah, blah. But it's kind of more interesting to just look at one thing and do a whole video on why one thing works, what the thought behind it is, how to repair it. And there you go. So I hope you enjoyed it. We will see you on the next one. Now, if you like these Ted Zell games, I'll put another one up here that he did that we worked on a while back. The guy was super creative, had really interesting layouts on his playfields, and is one of the most underrated pinball designers in my opinion. So check this one out.